Hello everyone, welcome back. In the previous couple videos, we have been factoring greatest common factors and we've been just upping the complexity of the type of problem. So, in the previous video, we looked where A was not 1, but when we factored out a GCF, the remaining trinomial was just like those we dealt with a couple videos ago. So, we are going to continue looking at factoring quadratics where A, this first value, because remember a standard form quadratic is like this. We're going to look when A, that A value, that coefficient on the quadratic term, is not 1. So remember, what we learned in the last video is that when we factor, we must always check for a greatest common factor first. So in our first problem here, we got 7x squared plus 29x plus 4. So I asked myself, is there anything in common between the three terms, 7x squared, 29x, and 4? There is not, so I'm going to go straight to my box. And in that box, I'm going to put 7x squared in the top left, and I'm going to put 4 in the bottom right. So, same idea here. Even though my A value is not 1, I can still use this box because I'm going to find two numbers that multiply to give me 28x squared and add to give me that middle term of 29x. So if I list the factors of 28, and I know that they have to multiply to give me a positive and add to give me a positive, so both my numbers are going to be positive. So if I list the factors of 28, I can see 1 times 28 is 28, and 1 plus 28 is 29. So I'm going to fill those values in to my box. And now I need to factor out the greatest common factor on the rows and on the columns. So if I look at the first row, I can pull out an x. If I look at the second row, I can pull out a 4. If I look at the first column, I can pull out a 7x. If I look at the second column, I can pull out a positive 1. So my factors of this quadratic trinomial are 7x plus 1 times x plus 4. And you'll start to notice a pattern. So the first two terms, 7x and x, those multiply to give me 7x squared. Our last two terms multiply to give me positive 4. And then when I distribute, I'm going to get 28x plus x. Then if I combine those like terms, I get 7x squared plus 29x plus 4. That is what we started with. And that is what we're doing when we're factoring. We are undoing that multiplication. So let's look at another example. I've got 24x squared minus 22x plus 3. So I have to look, is there a greatest common factor? And there's not, so I'm going to go straight to the box. I'm going to fill in 24x squared. I'm going to fill in 3. So I need to find two numbers that multiply together to give me 24 times 3, which is going to give me 72, I believe. 72x squared. And those two numbers also have to add together to give me that middle term of negative 22x. Now, at this step, I have to start listing the factors because they might not pop out right away. So if they multiply to give me 72x squared, and they add to give me a negative number, negative 22 in fact, then I know both of my numbers have to be negative. So I'm just going to start listing those numbers. Negative 2 and negative 36. Negative 3, let's see if 3 goes into it. And I got negative 24. Negative 4, might as well try it. I get negative 18, and then I can stop there because I see negative 4 plus negative 18 gives me negative 22x. So I'm going to fill in the remaining boxes in any order you want. And I'm going to factor out the GCFs of the rows and the columns, and I'm going to end up with 4x minus 3, and in the first column I am going to get 6x minus 1 in the second column. So my two factors are 4x minus 3 and 6x minus 1. Notice how that box helps us keep all this information organized. And then all I have to do is pull the greatest common factors of the rows, pull the greatest common factor of the columns, and those are going to be my two factors. Alrighty, let's continue on. Must check for a GCF first. So is there anything in common between 8r squared minus 6r and plus 10? Well, you see, they're all even. And so the smallest even number that goes into all of those is 2. So if I factor out a 2, I'm going to be left with 4r squared minus 3r plus 5. And then now I need to double check on this remaining factor. Make sure that you pulled out the greatest common factor. So indeed, it looks like I did. So we're going to now take this, what's left over, I'm going to throw it into my box. So they need to multiply to give me 20r squared, and they need to add to give me that middle term of negative 3r. So if I list those factors, if they multiply to a positive, add to a negative, they both have to be negative. So I got negative 20 times negative 1. I have negative 10 and negative 2. I have negative 5 times negative 4. Well, none of those looks like they're going to add to give me 20, multiply to give me 20 and add to give me negative 3. So, if this remaining is prime, then the only thing that I could pull out was that 2. So my whole answer is not prime, but the remaining factor is prime, so the only thing that I can do is pull out that greatest common factor. Okay? Got two more examples for you. 10y squared minus 35y plus 30. Look for a greatest common factor. They each have a 5 in common. So I'm left with 2y squared minus 7y plus 6. And so I go to my box now. 2y squared, 6. So they have to multiply to give me 12y squared. They have to, add to give me negative 7y. And so those two numbers are going to be, we can list them out. I got negative 1 times negative 2, negative 2 times negative 6, negative 3 times negative 4. Negative 3 and negative 4 add to give me negative 7. So now I need to factor out the GCFs on the rows and the columns. So I've got a y there, a negative 2 there, a y there, and a negative 3 there. So my greatest common factor comes along for the ride, and my remaining factor is 2y squared minus 7y plus 6 factors into y minus 2. Oh, sorry, it should be a 2y. Y minus 2 and 2y minus 3. And our last one we've got today. Negative 4x squared plus 13x minus 10. Is there a greatest common factor here? Well, there is, because my leading term is negative. So I need to factor out a negative, and I'm going to be left with 4x squared minus 13x plus 10. So now if I go over into my box, I got 4x squared here, 10 down here, so they need to multiply to give me 40x squared. They need to add to give me that middle term of negative 13x. So if I list these factors, I've got negative 40 times negative 1, negative 20 times negative 2. I've got 3 doesn't go into it. I got negative 10 times negative 4. And then negative 8 times negative 5. Well, those together are going to add to give me negative 13. So I'm going to fill in the rest of my box with those two numbers. Factor out the GCF on the rows and the columns. I'm going to get 4x minus 5, and I'm going to get x minus 2. And I can always double check at this step, multiply these together. 4x times x, 4x squared. 4x times negative 2, negative 8x. X times negative 5, negative 5x. Negative 2 times negative 5 gives me 10. So I'm going to drop my greatest common factor, and I'm going to write the two factors that I just found in my box. And then I can circle that. I can multiply those together and make sure we are good to go. Alright, so this is a very important skill, guys. You've got to make sure you know how to use the box and how to organize that factoring by grouping. So what I want you to do, try out those try nows. We'll go over those the next time I see you. As always, be safe, be good, do some good, and I will see you when I see you.